Hey, what's up with internet? Your boy's back, this time with a build vid on Nezha. I already did a build vid on Nezha a while back, actually, back when his Divine Retribution augment was first released. However, since then they nerfed the augment, and then they unnerfed the augment, and in the same patch they unnerfed the augment, although not completely unnerfed, it's still nerfed compared to its original launch state. And when they unnerfed the augment, they also dropped melee afflictions, which is quite relevant for Nezha. And there's, a few other reasons I had for remaking this vid. Like I tried a few new builds that I like now, and I got a few more things to share. So I figured it would be time to do a build refresh. If you weren't aware, Nezha is now a nuker frame. He's a quite good nuker frame. How it works is his 4. If you have the augment for it, any status effects applied to an enemy will now spread to all enemies along the chain. So I just set the guy on fire and stripped his armor. Now all the guys are on fire and their armor is stripped. And you'll see at the end there's like an explosion effect, and this will deal additional damage if they are all under the effects of slash, toxin, or heat damage. And if so, it will have an expedite suffering effect, where it just combines the damage all into one damage instance, and it even multiplies it based off your strength multiplier. So it's pretty good for nuking. You basically just shred some dudes and then press 4 and then everyone dies. So, yep. However, there's a interesting tidbit to this, which is that you need like some sort of enabler, because obviously the status doesn't get spread on its own. If you're just like doing this over and over, no one's gonna take any damage. So then the question then becomes, all right, well, how are we gonna spread these statuses? What's the best way of doing this? And it would seem that there's basically like 3 main ways of doing it, right? There's either you take a gun, which is very good at spreading status, like just rapid fire applying it. For those, I would choose the Furis and the Boar, by the way. These are the best in slot for that particular strategy, I would say. Alternately, you can use a melee weapon that has a forced proc of some sort, because that forced proc will get spread among everyone here, and generally that's done via like a heavy attack, so it'll be a very powerful proc, and possibly like 7 of them, because melee afflictions. So yeah, and also melee afflictions actually double dips, because like when it spreads, it applies again, so enemies will get like 12 procs minimum, which is really nice. But yeah, anyway, you need like a melee for that. There's some good options for that. I actually like the Arca Titron, despite the expedite suffering effect not at all applying to it. Another really good one is the Praedos, just because you get the passive move speed bonuses and it still works really well. And or you can just like optimize and go for like super heavy damage with the Azothane or something, but we'll get into it. And the final option is one I would have to go back into the arsenal to do, which is helmet abilities. There's 2 helmet abilities, maybe more, I guess, that seem relevant for this strategy. You could use either Dark Verse, or you could use Thermal Sunder to also apply damage, and these work pretty well as well. But if you ask me, those are mainly just builds for like EDA and the circuit and the like, because weapons will generally outperform them. The only real reason I see to use those is if you literally can't select your equip, like in EDA or circuit. Okay, let's get into the builds now. Alright, let's start by going over the Archon shards real quick. If you're going to want to use a gun to enable your nuke, then you're definitely going to need the corrosive shards, because it just does not do nearly as much damage if you're not stripping all their armor. These days, thanks to the armor changes, you can just use a single Tower Forge for this to get +3 stacks instead of +4 total, because that'll bring enemies down to, at most, 12% DR, or like 12.6, something like that, compared to 0% from a full strip. So it's kind of like a side grade to just upgrade this to a Tau and then free up the slot for something else. So use your preference. But of course, I mean, if you don't want to use the gun in the first place, you can free up these slots entirely and replace them with something entirely different. So yeah, I'm not too married to these, but you do need them for the gun part. So yeah, just keep that in mind. The other 2 main ones I would advocate using are casting speed shards. Nezha definitely does like his casting speed, and you basically absolutely totally need these for the builds that are helmet ability damage enablers, because you just need to cast really fast, otherwise your spears are going to disappear too fast, or it'll just be a huge pain in the ass to actually, do, because casting abilities takes a while. That's a pain in the ass. This one's an equilibrium shard. It's kind of just a holdover. I would probably replace this these days if I like had more bile. I don't know. I just don't. It's not a big deal. It's working out fine as is. So if you were keeping Chakram as your like non-helmet ability of your 1 and 2, this is especially good for that. That's the only reason I would put this on, because otherwise, there's no real reason to put an equilibrium shard on. But yeah, his Chakram can indeed spawn more health orbs with his 2, and there's an augment to spawn even more health orbs. However, I found that in practice I just don't really use his 2, so I've switched to subsuming it off entirely and just use Firewalker instead now, for the most part. So yeah, this is very replaceable, but you could replace this with like a prep shard or just like more energy of the energy orb effectiveness variety, or just even more strength. Good old red strength is always very good. I'm not married to these at all, but yeah. Alright, as for the builds, this depends a lot on your helmet ability, and your helmet ability depends a lot on like what the main form of damage you're using to trigger the nuke. I would say if you're using a force proc melee kind of thing, I would definitely advocate using Roar, because that's going to give you the most bang for your buck by a large margin. Although I have noticed that the damage spread, like the actual status effect damage that gets spread on the spears, it actually single dips faction damage, which is not usually how that works. Usually it double dips. You'll notice that the first guy, like when you prop everyone up on the spears, the guy you shoot will like double dip, but everyone else will single dip. So I find that interesting. So it's not as good as it might otherwise appear, but it is definitely still best in slot. So this will dramatically soup up your force proc damage. But if you're not a force proc kind of guy, then I would personally prefer Nourish, because if you can spread Nourish, viral procs along with whatever else you're spreading, it's going to soup up your damage quite a lot. So if you have a weapon that can just absolutely spam status effects, well, there you go. And of course, compared to Roar, it's also, recastable freely and regenerates your energy a lot, which is a big deal. Which is why this particular build is actually a little bit overkill in energy, because you can see they're literally the same mod page I'm using for both of these. And obviously Nourish is going to give you double the energy more or less, so you don't need to do it this energy economy heavy, but energy economy is like the main issue you'll even have on Nezha. You don't actually need like that much damage or anything. We're already max range anyway, so we're not making a ton of sacrifice here, but you could optimize a little bit with Nourish and go for a blind rage build, because good old Nourish and low efficiency tend to actually synergize pretty nicely together, because you'll get the energy regen back from your Nourish. Although this is less good than it used to be, because they nerfed Nourish, so you don't get nearly as much energy as you used to. But yeah, I found that this build also works pretty well. You can use Equilibrium instead there. I'll go into the mods in a little bit. The other main ways of building Nezha are, of course, the helmet ability damage ways, which are Dark Verse and Thermal Sunder. I like Dark Verse a lot better, personally, because it just works better. I've found, well, the main issue with Thermal Sunder is, like, you have to slot in Archon Vitality. At that point, I just have, like, no room to slot things. Like, you can see I dropped Augur Reach in this build, which I really did not want to have to drop, but I just cannot find room for it. The closest thing I could think of dropping would be Transient Fortitude, and at that point, we're sub 100% strength, which is just like, what are we even doing here, guys? But there's something to be said for Thermal Sunder anyway, because, like, it is the only one that's completely no line of sight, so you can, you don't need to see any enemies to kill them with this build, so that's good. Again, Dark Verse, Thermal Sunder, I would say mostly there's like circuit EDA picks, because then you might have shit weapons and can't enable your nuke in any other way. So for those, these are pretty solid, but for general purpose, yeah, just go with a weapon. Alright, let's talk about the specific mod and arcane choices now. First things first, you're definitely going to want Divine Retribution. That's a duh. Second thing second, crank your range as much as you possibly can. That's definitely what this build scales off of. His 4 is not line of sight in any way, shape, or form, so the more range, the merrier. Like, you generally don't need that much damage anyway, because your weapon scaling will take care of that, so it's very important to max out range if you can. I couldn't fit it, like I said, on this build, but if you can fit it, then do so. Second thing second, gotta make sure your energy economy is locked down. And that depends on your helmet ability significantly. If you're Roar, it's like doesn't really affect your energy economy. If you're Nourish, it will significantly bolster your energy economy, so you can like ease off the brakes a little bit. Although that one I'm putting Equilibrium in, but yeah, you can get away with less energy economy on that one. And if you're using Dark Verse or Thermal Sunder, or another helmet ability for ability damage, let me know if there's a third one I'm missing. That one will cause a huge drain on your energy economy, because you have to spam another ability, so you're going to need even more energy economy. In this case, I just opt for 175% efficiency, because you're definitely going to need it if you're spamming abilities that much. As for survivability, that's usually another chief concern of builds, but for Nezha, you can basically just use Warding Halo. Unfortunately, this doesn't work as well as Rhino's Iron Skin, because it only gives 90% DR and like bookends it with invincibility, but like you can die through 90% DR. And also, when it pops, the 1 second of invincibility applies after the actual damage, so you can just straight up die from the excess damage before the invincibility even procs. It's pretty cringe. However, in general, it works well enough. Like, if you're not, like, taking this into, like, level cap shit, you'll be fine. So, I generally just don't bother building for survivability. And, if you want to be even comfier, you could put in, like, an arcane guardian, I guess, or, like, an adaptation or something. But I used to do that, but now that he's got the nuke to supplement his defense with offense, it doesn't seem necessary anymore. So, I don't put, any actual defensive mods or anything on any of these guys. Although, I mean, augur mods are kind of important for that too. So definitely get an augur mod in there, but you can put that on a secondary as well, so it's whatever. I mean, you're gonna probably have one anyway, thanks to just augur reach being an auto include. Well, sort of auto include, because I couldn't fit it in this one again, but yeah. As for the arcanes, yeah, it's the strength and energy. This is pretty standard. I mean, like, if you don't have anything better to put in there, then these are just generally gonna be your picks, and it's no different here. This is the same case for Nezha. Cunning Drift is my augment, of course, for range. Enemy Radar, this is again to taste, but in this case, I would say it's usually probably like, probably definitely the one to go for. Like, usually I'm kind of a horror for Enemy Radar. I use it when maybe it's a little questionable, but in this particular scenario, it's a wide range nuke build, so I mean, and it gets all the damage it needs anyway, so it's pretty good. I'd go with Enemy Radar if I were you. Of course, you know, auras are pretty weak, so you can kind of do whatever you want to taste, but I like Enemy Radar, and I would advocate it. So, yeah. Strength doesn't actually matter that much, because most of the damage you're going to be getting is just straight up from your weapons. It matters more for the actual ability ones, because the abilities themselves scale off strength as well, but even then, it's hard to actually pump strength, because you need maximum efficiency, and like I said, if I put Augur Reach in this build, we'd be sub 100, so, you know, there's that. But, yeah, it cranks your helmet ability and increases your spear nuke damage, and if you keep your Chakram on, I think it, like, increases the damage vulnerability multiplier as well, but I just keep Firewalker on, because I barely ever use Chakram, I noticed, in practicality, and it increases the base amount of this shield thing, too, but it really doesn't matter that much. So, strength, you don't really have to pump that much, just keep it, like, decent. That's why I keep an Umbral Intensify and just, like, one extra strength mod. And that generally does the trick. Okay, a few quick notes I wanted to go over before comparing different status spread mechanisms. First things first, like, you probably already know this, and it's pretty obvious, but, like, one of the main problems with Nezha's nuke is that it does not work against overguard at all. Like, these guys just shrug it off. You cannot spread status among this, like, tiny little window where enemies are getting speared. Like, it just doesn't work. Which is very unfortunate, which means his nuke just does not work at all against these overguard Eximus enemies. So that's a huge downside to the nuke, but it's still pretty good quite overall. So you can kill those guys manually, of course, and they'll wind up being the only guys left. And somewhat interestingly, I also noticed that it doesn't even necessarily have to be overguard. A viewer helpfully pointed out to me recently that after the armor changes, the Drekar Manic Bombard is actually tankier than the Exo Gokstad officers I had been using as my test dummies. And when I went to test my Nezha builds on these guys, I noticed that they were just immediately deleting my spears. I'd still CCing them, as you can see, like they don't have overguard, but for whatever reason, these guys are just spear resistant, and similar to the overguard guys, even with this small window where the spears appear to be up, I just cannot get it to spread status, so these guys apparently also can't be nuked. So that's very unfortunate. So yeah, just something to keep in mind there, like the nuke just doesn't work on everyone, so that's a big flaw that it has. And the other thing I wanted to go over real quick is just how the damage actually works. Like, some mods and, you know, scaling attributes do not actually affect the status spread damage, the damage you get from the ticks on the impaled enemies that are not the main target, that is. Namely, the new Elementalist mods do not work. They increase status damage, but apparently only for the enemy that's actually hit by your weapon. All the enemies on the spears will not actually receive, like, they won't translate across to all those guys too. They'll take less damage. So you can drop your Elementalist mods from all your gun builds, or melee builds too. They are not going to help. Second of all, I noticed that faction mods are also, interestingly, not double dipping on the speared enemies. They do double dip on the primary enemy, like usual, but they only apply once to the speared enemies. So you do want, like, Roar faction mods still, but they don't apply in full. So just something to note there. And finally, percent damage increasing mods and percent, like, elemental damage increasing mods also don't increase your damage for the status effect damage, that is, the dots. Alright, and with that out of the way, let's get into the actually fun part, which is comparing and contrasting the different status application methods. Since I have Roar on already, let's start with the the melee forced proc method. Now, my first pick for this is the Dark Horse of the Arca Titron. Now, I repped this in my Wukong Slam video, but it seems like a very odd pick here, because if you pay attention to the augment, it indeed does not actually do the expedite suffering effect on shock effects, electricity. It only works on heat, toxin, and slash. So it seems like an odd pick here, but you'll see. It's actually pretty good. You just do this and they all die instantly. It turns out that if you just have incredibly strong electricity procs and add roar and melee afflictions on top of it, they're gonna die. They're gonna die real good. And let's try and get like a worst case scenario here with like super tanky enemies and try and hit like the very corner of them. Let's get like this, and then let's see how they die. They still die pretty good. They started dying less good because my roar ran out, but in general, like, this doesn't happen. Like, in practice from my testing, like, just everyone pretty much instantly dies. At best, they'll survive, they'll, like, have to wait out a tick, maybe 2. I don't even think I've ever seen an enemy survive 2 in practice. But, yeah, it's really good, so despite not, like, actually having the expedite suffering effect, and indeed, those guys would have died if the expedite suffering effect actually worked for electricity, but it does not. So, you know, definitely a dark horse pick, but here's my build for it. Again, definitely want to do melee afflictions for this. Normally I would rep influence, but here I do not. Yeah, the elementalist mod does not work, as I mentioned earlier, so I instead replaced it with enduring affliction. It's otherwise basically the same as my usual build. If you're curious about the Riven, it's status, chance, and electricity. The electricity actually doesn't really help in this particular case, because as I mentioned earlier, the raw electricity mods and, you know, elemental mods don't actually increase the tick damage in this particular case for the speared enemies for some reason. However, the status chance is nice. It basically means I get 2 electricity procs every time instead of just 1, because it says over 100% status chance. Could even be 3. Alright, but yeah, it's pretty good, as you can see. Let's go into the next pick I like a lot, which is the Praedos. The main reason I like the Praedos a lot is just because this is like my default weapon if I'm not planning on using melee whip. Like, there were years where I literally only used the Praedos because melee was just bad. The reason I used it was because it has a free plus 30% parkour velocity passive along with a free plus 20% sprint speed and slide passive. And I have found that when built correctly, namely for a heavy build, you can get a lot extra damage. Oh yeah, I should also mention that getting extra status duration is pretty nice too. It probably actually would have killed those guys in the in that last little demo with Arca Titron, but usually it's useless in the Arca Titron because they won't actually survive that long. But it is very useful for all the guys that actually work with Nezha's normal effect, because it will, you know, combine them all into the expedite suffering spear explosion. But okay, yeah, anyway, so let's see how this guy works. You just pop your roar and your spears, and then you'll be surprised that they, well, maybe not surprised, but you'll be impressed by the way they all just sort of instantly die. And so sure, that wasn't instantly because I had to wait for the dot ticks, but unlike the other one I just showed, Arca Titron, I can just make them instantly die from pressing the spear again. You just hit one of these and then one of these and they're all dead. GG. Actually, that's another thing I should note, which is very strange. I don't really know why it does this, but it forces another swing whenever I pop the spear when I do that. If I do this, and then I press heavy attack and then unpop it, it always does another swing there. I don't know. It's kind of annoying. I'm not input buffering like Dark Souls or anything. It's just really weird. You can even like wait like a full extra second and it'll still do it. But anyway, it's just a little weird annoyance about that. But yeah, any like weapon with a really good like slash proc will do here. Like the Azothane is also pretty good for this. Oops. This is just does a fuck ton. Actually, let's make sure. Yeah, I don't think I have the right build on this. Yeah, here we go. This is going to do the exact same thing, but it'll just do more damage. So if you don't care about the mobility improvements from the Praedos, actually I should probably get those guys in the back. This guy is going to be your guy because it can really mess these guys up. As you can see, they all died from a single tick there. I didn't even have to explode them. So that'll fuck them up good. Of course, another good option is ye old Glaive. I didn't bother making a build of this, so I hate Glaive, so I mean I'm just throwing this in. So this might actually not work very well, but I'm assuming, because I didn't build it at all, but it will work well if you build it correctly, and I think it'll probably work well anyway. Let's see. Oh, that's one of the reasons I hate Glaive. See, it like auto-detonated. There we go. Yeah, whatever. I fucking hate Glaives. So, yeah, if you like Glaives, it'll work. You know, just keep that in mind. Okay, so let's go into the Nourish build so we can show the Furis and Boar off. I will say the Furis actually doesn't really need Nourish. It's actually really fucking good. I would say of the two, Furis is actually... I want to take off the Glaive now just because it's saying Furis plus Glaive and it's annoying me. Alright. Let's do a little demo of the Furis real quick, along with the Boar. Like I said, both of these, they do definitely... Well, the Boar especially really likes its Nourish. But let's just do it without Nourish first for the Furis. Unfortunately, one of the main downsides to this is not only do you have to reload, but sometimes you have to like actually charge the incarnon, namely at the start of every single mission, which is pretty fucking annoying. But I forgot to not do it with Nourish. But anyway, yeah, you just you put them on the vines, you roast them a little bit, you pop them, GG, easy. It's really good for this because it applies a fuck ton of very damaging status, and it has like a really large incarnon pool. Like the 280 ammo is fucking massive actually, so you don't have to worry that much about incarnon recharging. But yeah, it'll kill him good. It'll kill him good. So yeah, keep that in mind, I guess, as one of your main. Feel free to let me know if there's like other good status application guns I've missed, because I'm sure there are. But these seem to be best in slot, if you ask me. Now let's do the Boar real quick. He's really flailing around on that thing. For this one, it's obviously the same thing. You just nuke them a little bit and pop them, and GG, they'll die. It works really well. I mean, that being said, this is a weird Boar build. I'll get into it in a second. Actually, I'll get into it right now. The Boar build's a little weird just because it's like a pure status Boar. I go for the status chance evolution. These are the other ones if you're interested. And I go for a very strange Riven that just amps the status application as much as it possibly can, basically, at the cost of crit stats entirely. So this is a complete crit dump stat weapon. It's just all about getting as much status as you possibly can. And like I said earlier, like the heat like stats don't actually scale the dot tick damage, but the reason they're in this is because it will affect the elemental weighting. Therefore, you'll get a lot more heat procs compared to corrosive procs, and you don't want that many corrosive procs because corrosive caps out at 14 pretty quickly, and heat does not cap at all. And this weapon applies an absolutely ridiculous amount of heat. In fact, I didn't even like show it that well. Let's just look at what the actual heat application is, so you can see it for yourself there. It applies quite a lot of heat. Let's see. Yeah, you can see it. There's 1,000 heat ticks right there. It's pretty good at applying heat, so if you were to have less heat weighting, you'd get less heat ticks, and you don't want that. So yeah, there's my Boar build for you. As for the Furis build, here's what that looks like. Again, you want like status duration that's actually pretty good. Player actually doesn't matter. I should probably actually switch this for Fortifier, actually. Let's do that. Because also something to note about a little Nezha tip is that his 90% DR is actually a 90% damage redirect, not a reduction. So unlike the damage reductions, it does actually apply to overguard. So like you pop out your art gun for 2k overguard, and it's actually like 20k on Nezha, unlike most other, or effectively, because he's getting the 90% damage redirect. So just a little something to note there, but it doesn't really usually matter that much. But yeah, the Furis is just pretty simple Furis build. You just get your corrosive, and it automatically has heat as part of the weapon. Oh, and here's my Riven. It's also, this is a pretty good Riven. It's a pretty good Riven. The damage doesn't matter at all for this, because again, the damage, it doesn't matter. It's not a stat that it scales off of. But the status chance and the crit damage do help. So yeah, definitely want that. You probably replace this with just a crit damage, mod here, if you didn't have it. Have my Riven, which you don't. Alright, that about does it for my suite of weapon picks. Feel free to chime in the comments with any other good weapons you have that I didn't cover here. I'm sure there are some that I missed, like I was saying. But anyway, let's go into the actual helmet ability versions of triggering the status spread. First, we'll start with Dark Verse. I generally prefer this as Thermal Sunder, but I still find it rather underwhelming. I will say that it will seem even more underwhelming here in the Simulacrum. In practice, it works pretty well. But as you can see, we'll just spam these guys and they didn't die. But, I mean, it did a bunch of damage to them. There we go. Second time they died. So, I mean, it works pretty well. You just, I mean, that's the whole playstyle. It's pretty obvious. You just sort of pop people up on your spears and just start spamming one at them. Because the duration is so low, they will auto-pop themselves back down. And usually they'll die, but not here in the simulacrum. Like I was saying, it's like, obviously this is kind of underwhelming damage-wise. But it still works quite well, you know. It's definitely a thing you can pick for Circuit or EDA, or, you know, if you just really don't have a good weapon or something. And then there's Thermal Sunder, which, again, like, the only one that requires literally 0 line of sight, so there's that. But also the most, like, mod-tight one, and I'm not a huge fan of this particular build. But it actually works okay. You have to get your, like, 3 casts up at least, and then, yeah, see, it kills them even better. But it's, like, even more energy hungry and, like, mod space dependent, so... But it's, you know, it's definitely an alternate good option. Oops, that's the wrong button. Oh, it doesn't, yeah, it's not gonna work well if you do that and waste your time when they're actually on the spears, though. There we go. That does actually get capped. It doesn't work like Gauss, where you can just keep scaling that up to ad infinitum, but it's enough, as you can see, provided a high enough enemy density. Okay, so yeah, that explains all the different ways you can proc that I like. Let's just pick a loadout and get into SP Circulus demo, why don't we? Alrighty, let's get into it. For this one, as you can see in the bottom there, I'm using the Roar build. That's mainly because I feel like you kind of need it for the melee weapon, whereas you don't really need it for the guns. It's just better to have than Roar in that case. But yeah, I'm also a little bit uncomfortable with how much energy I started with, which is why I was kind of just standing there, although I could just pop an energy pad or something. But once you get in the swing of things, you'll be good to go, trust me. But yeah, maybe I should have put in like a prep shard or something. I don't know, whatever. Like I said, I'm not really using that equilib shard, so not a big deal. Also, something I forgot to mention is your Panzervolk, some sort of companion, although, I mean, I prefer the Panzervolk, is going to be really helpful. Panzervolk specifically is good for spreading viral. Like, if you're not using Nourish, that's going to be quite helpful. And it's also just really good for your energy economy, because it can, like, have Mystic Bond and Seismic Bond, which actually does apply to enemies getting speared. And it has Synth Deconstruct, which helps if you have any sort of equilibrium effect. And, like, Shock Collar, too, can help with Archon stretch, shit like that. So as you can see, despite not the electricity, like, not being one of the status effects that is helped by... Oh, the fucking rock, dude. That gets me every time. But, as you can see, it still hits quite hard. These guys just instantly die anyway. Oh, also, I'm not even doing this right. I should, do this and then roll out of it. See what I'm saying? Hit one of these and then you roll. That's the playstyle. I really like this playstyle. You just slam and roll, you know? You pop 4, you slam, you get the fuck out of there. That's part of the reason I like the Arca Titron. Just because you can do that really nice playstyle. As you can see, I didn't even have Roar proc at that time. It's really good. Alright, but you've seen the Arca Titron. Let's start putting these other guys on. I gotta put my free back on now. It's fucking... Would he stop? I fucking hate charging incarnon, dude. Alright. You do one of these. There you go. Yeah, I mean, it works the same for pretty much everything, you know. Just, I think you get the idea. Obviously, it'll work better with Roar, but you know, not that much better because it's, you know, dead is dead. And this one's, you can see I'm actually gaining overguard with this weapon too, because I put Fortifier on there at the last second. The actual, like, yeah, damage percent doesn't matter, so this is pretty handy, I would say, for this. And yeah, while energy economy isn't super ideal, like, it's definitely good enough on this, and if you want like a better one, just literally switch Nourish. There you go. Or you can put on like energy shards or something, or, you know, there's a bunch of things you can do. But, as you can see, it's good enough here, I would say, for sure. But yeah, it's kind of to taste, I guess. Energy's kind of always weird, because like, you only really want to have just enough, but you also don't want it to be like uncomfortable, like have something you have to worry about a lot, so you can like make it really comfy energy economy wise and sacrifice a bit of power. That's kind of up to you, that's what I'm getting at, you know. Also, I really don't like how hard it is to pill my fucking wait, when did I start using the Boar? I thought I was using the Furis this whole time. Did someone like take my weapon? Yeah, he took my weapon. God damn it. Well, at some point there I started using the Boar, apparently. Oh, I guess it was literally just now. Cause, yeah, okay, anyway. But here's the Boar. Forgot what I was talking about, because that guy fucking took my weapon. But yeah, this works pretty well too, even like without the viral. As you can see, like, most enemies just are gonna fucking die to this kind of shit. Like, this is, of course, Steel Path. The highest, like, star chart level you can get. I mean, works pretty well. And yeah, as you can see, it doesn't work on Exodus, but you can just kill them yourself. You'll be fine. But, yeah, I want to go back to this, because it's more fun. I might just fast forward to, like, the Acolyte part, because, I mean, you've seen it. Sadly, I can't just switch on a dime to, like, the Helminth ones, so I can demo that in real time, but... I mean, I guess I could with the power of video editing, but I'm also lazy. You saw how it worked in the fucking simulacra. Close enough. I mean, I will say the Dark Verse one, like, performs a lot better, like, in practice than it seems to in the simulacrum. Like, that took a couple, like, you know, rotations to actually kill the Exogok stat officers in there, but that is not the case for reality. I'll tell you that much. These guys blow up pretty good. Although, again, not as good as with weapons, and, like, you have to make a lot of sacrifices for that, so I think it's only really a good Circuit EDA build, but yeah, no. Yeah, no. Alright, let's blow this guy up. There we go. Easy game. That's more just showing the power of a hammer, though. Nezha can't really do anything good against those guys. In fact, if you're using just, like, the Furis and the Boar, you're gonna really struggle with those guys, because... they're really good at dealing with beam weapons that aren't the Torrid. Torrid is just obscenely powerful, so it gets a pass, but yeah, no. Yeah, no. Oh, yeah, see, I didn't have Roar on. Whoopsie. Didn't actually do that much, though. Yeah, Nez is good. Also, yeah, I haven't used Firewalker this entire time. This is what I was saying, though. Like, I literally don't use my first or second abilities, so, for the most part. So that's why, like, I kept my first one instead recently, because I was like, well... of the two, Firewalker is kind of just like a passive buff that, you know, speeds you up. So, you know, I'd like to be faster. That's good. You know, oh, I forgot the spear. And, yeah, easy game, easy game. Okay, let's kill these guys. Oh, they instantly went ghost mode. I hate that shit, dude. This is my least favorite enemy in the game, honestly. I fucking hate these things. I didn't instantly kill him. Well, whatever. Close enough. Why is this? Alright, whatever. He was like invincible there. Do I have to hit him again? What's going on with this fucking guy? Here. Nope, I guess he's... Yep, okay. Fun! I love that bug. The fucking roulette, which one it is. Alright, let's get out of here. Let's skedaddle. And do it with Nezha fast mode instead of bullet jumping around. Whee! Except it's really not that fast, but, you know, whatever. Alright, well... That about does it. I managed to find something to say the entire time. I mean, that's the build. I think this is definitely an improvement over my last Nezha video, especially because, you know, that one's just straight up fucking outdated. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there's, like, any good weapons I missed. There's a bunch, like I said, you know, it's probably one I missed. Probably like 5 I missed that are pretty good, you know. But this is pretty good too. And, you know, good old like, subscribe, join my Discord if you want, whatever. Alright, see ya. Peace.